at the moment. There's another one near Clifty there, just off to the north and east of some of our counties. Not a lot of lightning with this. That can be indicative of storms that are starting to weaken, but we have seen many times where tornadoes have touched down without any lightning strikes present. So we want to make sure that we're not going to downplay this just yet because of that factor alone. Lightning's a big deal, but it doesn't mean the end-all be-all for tornado potential with these storms. I'm going to put on some of the rotation here once we zoom in so you can see exactly what's going down here near Spraytown and near Bobtown. Those areas currently under the tornado warning at the moment. And as we put on the velocity scope, that allows us to see, of course, the winds in the storm, where we have the rotating winds that can put down a tornado. And yeah, we do have some concern just east of Spraytown here, but this is not anything to jump up and down about at this time. You want to make sure you're in your tornado safe place still. Spraytown areas, especially near Bobtown at this time. That's again in northern Jackson County, Indiana. We're talking about areas again north of Seymour. North of Seymour is what we're talking about here. So if you're in Seymour proper, you're not directly under the gun from these storms. It's areas that are just a very short drive to your north. And if you're on I-65, maybe you're watching us on streaming, or pull over, head into a rest area, head into maybe a fast food restaurant, and just let this stuff pass, because this is not the kind of thing you want to drive through, because there is some hail potential, not a lot in it, but it's the gusty winds and the very heavy rain that are frankly not very safe to drive through as you're heading north into Brown County, Indiana, and up toward the Indianapolis area. I'm going to step to the side here so that we can see down the line what's going on with some of this rotation that is very broad. It's more kind of a straight line wind scenario, really. Got another lightning strike there, and looks like Jennings County that has come up here in the last 10 minutes or so. You know, there's still lightning, just not a whole lot of it. What I want to do now is zoom out so that you can see this little box right here. If you watch very closely, there's this little red box that kind of drawn just like this. In fact, I'll draw it just right there. That is what we have left of the tornado watch. The Storm Prediction Center continues to carve away at the tornado watch the areas that are not under the gun from a tornado anymore. So it's a very small, compact area we're talking about. Louisville, not under the watch at this point. And really, it's areas near Seymour that have the watch that are going to be under the gun potentially from any sort of storm like this. It looks like we've got a new warning that's coming out that's going to be for Bartholomew and Decatur County, not any of our counties at this time. And as we go into the zoomed in view here, we can take our camera and zoom around and show you exactly where that is, just in relation to where we're at, and you'll see that that tornado warning does not include any part of Jennings County in Indiana. Brian Good has something very interesting pulled up on the radar there. We're talking about the thunderstorm energy. What kind of energy do we have to fuel these storms, and what are you seeing?
Yeah, see, that's the northern fringes here, wave country, but when you get them to overlap with fuel, you got a problem. And that's what's been happening across Indiana so far for this evening. But look at the animation of the past few moments. Notice we had quite a bit of fuel that was available anyway for these parts of southern Indiana. And the last couple of frames, we start to lose that. So they are running out of gas. The good news about that is, as Ryan's been mentioning, the tornado threat is going to begin to ease. The bad news is this is going to become a flash flooding threat. I think Jackson and Jennings is certainly in that zone for that potential. But also bring your eyes out here back into the Wabash and Illinois. A lot of energy just sitting there. That will be tapped into later tonight, and the radar should light up later tonight, and that's activity that may take until sunrise, potentially even get into Louisville. We'll just see how this trends overnight tonight, but that is certainly going to add to the flash flooding threat potential there. So, Ryan, this is a kind of a mixed feeling, because we've got some good news coming in when it comes to reducing this tornado threat downward. Still got some the wind threat there in northern Jackson. It's becoming more and more of a look of a straight line wind scenario here that's taking place, but we're about to change modes into a whole other scenario, which in all reality is one of our biggest issues we have in the Ohio Valley, certainly at night, and that is flash flooding. So certainly keep that way through news weather up handy here.
Yeah, that's a more widespread threat that can affect us all a little bit more equally. There are technically more fatalities from flash flooding than tornadoes by a huge margin every year. So when we talk about flash flooding, honestly, that's a little bit more serious than some of these more marginal tornado warnings that we're covering right now for some of the rotation that we're seeing in there. Something that Brian and I were talking about earlier today is the fact that we have all of these very strong to severe thunderstorms in areas that saw a lot of cloud cover today and that didn't have a whole lot of heating going on. What's going on is there's so much moisture in the atmosphere that it can actually overpower some of that heating and the lack of sunlight to get these storms going. Whenever you have a moisture feed that's that strong, It doesn't matter if you've had sun or not. We always say, hey, if you see sunshine the afternoon before a severe weather event, that had it or not. So much moisture in the atmosphere to really get all of that going. All right, let's take you on a little bit of a radar tour here.
So Ryan, while you're doing that too, they just confirmed there was a touchdown not far from Columbus, Indiana. It's just outside area, but that is the most recent confirmation we've had of anything hitting the ground over the past, 2 hours, hour and a half or so.
Yeah, it's been about 9 minutes.
So it looks like that's, again, just outside of our area, but we have a lot of viewers that have friends or family there into Columbus. So just kind of want to mention that here right now.
Yeah, and some of them may be viewing us on, of course, our streaming apps as well, the Wave 3 News weather app. Since we're so close to the Columbus area, you folks served by the Indianapolis TV market, but it looks like you have had a confirmed touchdown up there. Yikes. I mean, this is so close to impacting our counties with very, very impactful weather. And we have been very fortunate that it has just been mere miles north of some of these county lines that we serve. So what I'm going to do now, trying to get a little bit of a movement here on the radar so you can see exactly what's going on just to the west of these sections that are impacted with the tornado warning in northern Jackson County. We want to look downstream to see what's going on. Areas near Yellowstone, very weak looking storm at this point. This is not really going to cause us any problems. We've noticed this overall decrease in intensity of these thunderstorms as they all mesh together as we start to get into the cooler part of the evening as the sun begins to set. We still have about roughly a half hour of sunlight left before the actual sunset takes place, closer to 9:06 here in the Louisville area and those areas along the I-65 corridor. But we want to make sure that nobody's caught off guard by the flash flooding. Night flash flooding is so dangerous, and everybody needs to be aware that if you're essentially in areas that are seeing rain now, you could very well see additional rain here. Brian, quite a bit, so we need to watch for that. Brian Good pulling up the Wave 3 News big board right now, showing us the two warnings that haven't been expired yet that we still continue to be on the air for.
Yeah, just kind of a quick recap for those just now turning on the TV or watching us on the app. Several of you are right now. We've been hearing from you on Twitter and Facebook, so appreciate you guys watching and a great service to have in a situation like this. Here's the latest of the warnings, and it's really just the severe thunderstorm warning in the northern fringe of Jennings. And then we got that small little section there still being impacted northern Jackson for tornado warning. Both of these warnings for another 22 minutes. So if you're watching in Scottsburg, if you're watching in Carrollton, in Louisville, Fern Creek, all the way down into Shepherdsville, and you're like, okay, what's the deal, guys? Is this coming my way or not? The easy answer to all of this is no. It's going to take some time to get thunderstorms to work their way closer to the Ohio River, but our immediate concern is going to be Jackson and Jennings, and they are going to keep this warning going, it looks like, Ryan, for the remaining 20 minutes that we have here on the big board. So we'll be watching, again, the next 20 minutes to see how this evolves. It still looks like more and more like this is certainly a high wind threat that is kind of taking place. So far, I'm picking up wind gusts at times between, I would say, 50 to about 65 miles per hour just above the surface. Have been located there into Jackson County, and I think that's really going to be hugging right on the fringe. But the way that Jennings is laid out geographically here, it sticks out from Jackson there. So that's the reason why you guys will likely have a little more of an impact than some of our other counties have had so far this evening, Ryan.
Yeah, I have a feeling that a lot of these will transition into just severe thunderstorm warnings with these tornado possible tags on there, just because of the wind shear that we're seeing in the atmosphere. The imminent tornado threat has pretty much gone down a lot here over the past, say, hour or so that we've been on the air, but we need to hit home that where there are still warnings in effect, you need to heed them because those are the strongest parts of the storms that could impact. Talking about how your threat is not zero right now, but it is going down. And the reason for that is because this storm just to the west of you that's got a little bit of a tornado warning corridor there in the northwest part of Jennings County. This continues to look not quite as impressive. You'll notice it has a bit of an appendage on there. We'll continue to watch that. It's kind of facing the wrong direction, so it's likely not anything of too much concern, but we are continuing to be concerned for those folks who are up there, especially north of Seymour and north of North Vernon. Now, the areas just to the west of Jackson County continue to show us some thunderstorm activity. This is not severe at this time near the Yellowstone, Indiana area. We're going to put the rotation velocity tracker, the wind velocity on there. And any sort of like nexus of rotation is going to be just north of, looks like Jennings or Jackson County, I should say at the moment. But notice if you draw a straight line east, yes, it impacts a little bit of Jennings County. And this pretty much, in my mind, argues for a severe thunderstorm warning, not necessarily a tornado warning at this time. So we'll see what they do with that. We've just gotten some new information in from the National Weather Service here in Louisville. They have gone ahead and canceled some of our counties from the tornado watch this evening. We were talking about that earlier, but the National Weather Service in Louisville acknowledging that now. Looks like only Jackson and Jennings counties in Indiana are under the tornado watch until 10 p.m. That is it. The rest of us not under a tornado watch. I frankly don't expect a tornado watch to be issued anywhere south of this. A lot of people always ask, hey, is it going to extend down a county or two? That's not the situation we're facing tonight, because this is a decaying, a dying situation. This is not a situation that's just starting. What is just starting, though, of course, is the flash flood threat. I know we've said this a lot here over the past hour or so, but it is so important. We could have some flash flooding tonight, especially in those counties that are being afflicted by heavy rain right now. There's more rain off to your west. In fact, I'll go back to that wide view here. Across parts of the very northern parts of Jackson and Jennings counties here, likely over the next hour or two. So if you see a flash flood warning suddenly pop up on your phone, don't be shocked, just because we have some of those areas of rainfall moving through. The fact that there are breaks in between these individual cells within this cluster is a good thing. That will help the rainfall rates not be as crazy for as long a time. That should help a bit, but we still want to make sure we hit home the fact that flooding can be so very deadly, especially when it gets to nightfall like we're in right now. We're just about, looks like about 20 minutes away from sunset, and that's when flooding can be really, really dangerous, especially if you can't see it with the sun going down in the distance. Brewersville, Zenas, Indiana, you folks pretty much under the severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag on it right now, and the tornado warning just to your north will not be extended likely into Jennings County. It's the one to the west that we're a little more concerned about. That does include a very small chunk of Jennings County and the very northern part of Jackson County. This is going to be north of Seymour. Again, travel on US 31, travel on I-65, not recommended north of Seymour right now. I wouldn't take my chances in these storms. There are tornado warnings on them. There is the potential for some gusty, damaging winds within these. Hail's not of particular concern, but it's another thing we're watching. There could be some small hail in these storms, so you want to make sure that and along with the rainfall rates being very high, that you don't drive through these storms if you can help it up there. I know there's a lot of folks who may know people who are trying to get some traveling done between Indianapolis and Louisville. I don't recommend that at this point. There's US 31 east. There's Sand Creek right there. That's just north of our counties, and looks like any sort of rotation would be in that area, trying to graze the very northwestern part of Jennings County there. Looks like Brian Good's looking at some of the hail potential there. What's going on up there?
Yeah, still kind of monitoring and see how these hail potential and the wind fields are going to turn out. So far, as you mentioned, there's mainly just small hail indicators. I haven't seen anything reported at all, in fact, on hail so far, which is a good sign. Looking at the wind shear here, you can certainly see this band. See how it's taking in the more of the backwards C shape right now on the radar. So this is certainly going to be a good burst of wind that's heading right in the northern areas of Jennings County. And Ryan was talking about how he thinks this is going to be a severe thunderstorm warning. I agree. I think the next warning should be that. It just depends on the Weather Service office out of Indianapolis what they decide to do. But still, there's still that potential that there could be some rotation with this, given the history of this entire band. This is the worst of it as far as anything that's spinning right now. And that's not here. That's up there into Bartholomew County. So we're not concerned about that as it's tracking just north of our viewing area. This is our main concern, though, is what's moving into northern areas of Jennings County. And as I broaden out the view, looking at other areas that have strong winds or anything circulating, you can see there's just not a lot happening. And really, the main focus is going to be there in Jackson and Jennings County. And you also notice how that watch has been cleared out, too, that you were talking about, Ryan. So this is kind of an odd setup here tonight. It's not one that we see very often, and I know a lot of you are fine. You're enjoying a pleasant evening. I get it, but it's our job to make sure everyone is safe in all 29 of our counties. And right now our focus is still going to be on Northeast Jackson and certainly northern Jennings here for the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, our mission and our mandate here at Wave 3 News is to keep folks safe who are within our counties. Whenever we have a threat within our counties that puts your life in danger, we go on the air for wall-to-wall coverage, especially during these tornado warnings. And that's why we're on the air now, is because we have a tornado warning that is still in effect. I'll move that out of the way so you can see where that is, for the northwestern part of Jennings County, Indiana, and the very northern part of Jackson County. Oh, my goodness, it looks like we've got a brand new tornado warning here. I'm kind of surprised to see this. Let's see what's going on with that. All right, so it looks like they've Yeah, they've issued a brand new tornado warning, quite a large one. This includes Freetown. This includes Seymour. This includes parts of North Vernon until 9:30 this evening. All right, what the National Weather Service in Indianapolis is seeing is in this storm cell right here. This is going to be northwest of Freetown. Looks like they're the potential. Frankly, that's not quite as much rotation as I thought I would see for a tornado warning there, based on what Brian is saying. It looks like it just popped up. Yeah, Brian's got it there.
I think
there it is. Yep, it's there.
What we're looking at, I think they're able to, there are so many different tools we have these days, we're able to advance the potential future radar, if you are, futurecast we talk about a good 15, 20 minutes, and it seems like that is indicating that the rotation should increase a bit more here with that cell that was relatively weak. You were talking about in Yellowstone, it wasn't doing a whole lot. Now it's starting to rotate a bit more. So that's how quickly this all changed here in the past few minutes. But this is the one that it looks like has triggered this. So we've got one end of the county worried about more of a straight line wind scenario, to be honest with the way it's looking, and then the western part of the county and certainly portions there of very far northeast Lawrence County dealing with this potential rotation. But let's make sure that we're clear so far. No reports of anything touching down with that one so far. It's all radar indicated, Ryan. And
it just literally popped up. I mean, the last scan or two of the radar, it's funny, you can go back about 5 minutes and see nothing out of this storm. Whoop, it pops up there. Sometimes the rotation in the upper levels of a storm do come down to the base of the storm as well. So they may have seen in the upper levels of the storm that rotation really starting to get into high gear, and they were able to get that warning issued. So hats off to them for getting that issued there so quickly as the radar was showing that. Brian's putting on some of the gate-to-gate shear, and it's not all super impressive. 66 mile per hour gate-to-gate shear.
That's spinning.
Yeah, that's certainly spinning. Yeah, some of those earlier numbers weren't quite as good. So if you're in Norman, if you're in Freetown, this is the real deal. You need to make sure that you're in your tornado safe place. This is the very northwestern corner of Jackson County, Indiana. This warning does include Seymour. Now, this area of rotation will likely track just due east here, and we've talked about these storm motions being somewhere around 30 to 35 miles per hour tonight. It's going to take a while. That's why this tornado warning goes until 9:30. Current time is 8:48, so we've got around 45 minutes to go with this tornado just west of North Vernon, likely including some of the city proper there, also in this tornado warning. What I'm going to do is zoom this in a little bit more here because this continues to be our primary area of concern. See how fast this changes? See why we're on the air? This can develop in a scan or two of the radar and really give a punch to those folks that really don't need it. So we want to make sure that everybody knows that there is potential here for this storm to put down a tornado.
Okay, we got a funnel cloud sighting now. This is going to be from the emergency manager in Ruddington area there of Jackson County. So we're trying to get a little better vantage point of that. But again, that's from the emergency manager there. Not sure if that's their vantage point or it's a public report. Looking into that right now. But certainly the rotation starting to pick up a bit more here, it looks like, especially in the northwest side there of Jackson County, Ryan.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me to get the funnel cloud report, especially when these storms start producing such tight rotation so quickly. It can be mere minutes between when you get the rotation started and when the tornado starts to drop down from it, potentially hitting the ground. Now, that's a funnel cloud report, not a tornado report. So we haven't had a report of this touching the ground, but if you're in areas just north of Indiana 58, if you're just north of Kurtz, or if you're in Kurtz proper there, if you're in Bald Knobs, I know I've said that town name so many times tonight, but you folks continue to be under the gun from multiple areas of rotation. You need to make sure that you're in your tornado safe place right this second. This is a life-threatening situation. We've had a funnel cloud reported. We're verifying the veracity of that report at this time to
and
make
Ryan,
sure
too, this funnel cloud is actually with the lead cell. This is actually the one that's on Highway 31 east of I-65.
Okay, so that's with the former
that's
cell all the way
northeast
east
of Seymour. It's right along Highway 31. Again, there's Little Acre. For those of you that are in Seymour watching right now, again, this is just mainly to your north and east. It's right along and through here is where this funnel cloud sighting was. It's not actually shield of wind shear, and that's not uncommon, certainly to get a bit of a spin that's happening there. But let me stress on this. When we say funnel cloud, that's basically an indicator that there's a cloud that they say that is rotating that has not made contact with the ground level. So it's not officially a tornado. And this is going to be a common sight with some of these cells. We just need to monitor, make sure it doesn't touch down. You guys need to treat it as if it were to touch down any time, and make sure you're in your safe spot northeast Jackson and certainly into northern areas of Jennings County. And so it's getting still a bit active at times in our northern fringe. In fact, you can see now, Ryan, the latest scan is starting to focus that shear a bit more compared to the arc that we had earlier. So that is something we'll have to watch.
Yeah, so now two areas of concern, the very northeastern part of Jackson County, the very northwestern part of Jackson County. I know we sound like a broken record here. Those areas have been under the gun here for quite some time, and that is to be expected given this scenario. So what we're going to do is zoom in on that a little bit more and give you a sense of how the velocity or the rotation in this storm has evolved here over the past several minutes since we've checked out this storm here, because we were going over to parts of northwest Jackson County to check on that for folks who may be impacted over that way. And here we go with the velocity, and you'll see it's still somewhat broad, but the fact that we had a funnel cloud report from this isn't completely shocking, just because you can have a very small eddy that tries to twist up even within some of this broader rotation. We've seen that happen before, where you don't have much of a signature on radar, but you get a tornado from it, maybe just because of a little eddy that tries to form like that. So if you are in the northern part of Jennings County, Indiana, if you are near Country Squire Lakes, if you are near Brewersville, you need to treat this as if a tornado is coming your way. You need to be in your safe place right now, because this is a life-threatening situation for you folks up that way. Again, for folks just tuning in here in Metro Louisville, storms possible threat here tonight. Just a couple of thunderstorms possible. Once we get into, say, like 10 or 11 o'clock, we'll continue pouring over that data here over the next several minutes or so and get honed in on that. But it's continuing to be areas to our north, inside of our counties, that are concerning with tornado reports, not tornado reports, I should say, but the funnel cloud report in the northwestern part of Jackson County that came in there just a few minutes ago. Or actually, that funnel cloud report came in just northeast of Seymour.
Look at this gate to gate that's coming in
now.
Now we're
79
getting,
miles per hour.
yeah, now
Wow.
we're getting to a very formidable circulation that is developing here just north of Freetown. Let me zoom in really close here. And again, Bald Knobs, you guys have been under the gun here, it seems like, off and on. This is just south of County Road 1000 North. There's Houston, there's Bald Knobs. It's going to pass right over that. In fact, it's likely doing that right now as I'm speaking to you guys. Right along Highway 135, there's Pershing, there's Freetown. Now, it looks like it's going to pass just north of Freetown, and Spraytown yet again in the path. Again, this is the northern part of Jackson County. No confirmation of a tornado on the ground here in northern areas of Jackson County, but the radar is telling us this thing is certainly spinning enough that it could produce one as it continues to track to the east. So you need to get into your safe spot all the way from Spraydown to Bobtown here, get into your lowest level of your home, basement, interior room, get away from windows, and let's hope that this breezes on by. We've been very fortunate, guys, so far with this event compared to our friends just to the north of us. I can't tell you how many reports we're getting right now of tornadoes that are on the ground right now in parts of Indiana, and the damage reports that are coming in. So we've been very, very lucky. So let's count our blessings. Let's hope that we just take the right precautions here and stay safe, and make sure to check on each other as we get to the next 15 to 20 minutes here, Ryan.
Yeah, such important information, of course, that we're trying to convey to folks who may be living up in the northern part of Jackson County that may not hear for quite some time, just because of the multiple storms that have moved through there. A little bit of a notch on radar near Freetown, and there you go with the actual rotation on radar that we've been tracking. We'll also keep an eye on this area of rotation just northwest of Hayden and North Vernon. This is, again, in Jennings County, Indiana. So two counties involved here, Jennings and Jackson. Louisville, not so much. This is not going to be a situation that we really have to monitor for the Louisville area, because the tornado threat is going to be staying well to our north. But look at this little eddy of spin just to the north and west of North Vernon, Indiana at this time. Really want to zoom in on that. We've spent some time with the northwestern Jackson County storm. We'll get back to that here in just a second. But I want to make sure folks up in parts of Jennings County have the information that they need to stay safe here, because this is not looking too good. And it looks like, Brian, you're sampling some of that right now, and that looks like 130 knot.
That's what I'm getting.
Shear.
Now,
Wow,
we'll just have to see if the radar is not doing its attempt at folding here on the beam. But we're watching this. But again, this is radar estimates that you're looking at. Now, see, it just updated, and it's quite a bit of a change. Let me try to get another sampling of it, though, and see if that's still there. A lot better than what we had, but still, there's certainly some rotation in this area here that's located just west there of County Road 575, and that, again, is right now moving into the northern side. So for those of you in North Vernon, get in your safe spot. You're going to be likely just to the south of where this is located, but this is the one that's had a history of producing the funnel cloud in that area. So we're watching that particular storm, Ryan, and of course we're to see how this one trends here across portions of Bald Knobs into northern areas of Jackson County as well. Can I check real quick there on how that's standing. It looks like the new warning is being updated there for Jennings County. I will mention too, the gate-to-gate is still pretty strong on that, Ryan. I will mention that new warning that that storm is still moving 30 miles per hour, but this one now has increased in forward motion to 50 miles per hour.
Wow.
In northern Jackson. So these are the two bad boys right now that we need to make sure that stay up in the clouds and don't come down.
Yeah, multiple tornado warnings in effect for our counties up there in southern Indiana, Jackson and Jennings. Want to check on this storm near Bald Knobs here. I've got that pulled up just for folks who are continuing to stay in their safe place due to that one. This is approaching Freetown, the northern parts of it, and Spraytown. This is, again, in parts of Jackson County. This is a dangerous storm. This is a storm that is spinning pretty violently right now. We've seen at least now a couple of signatures that have spun like this in wave country. One, of course, now going in our northwest parts of Jackson County, and another one that's been a little bit more ephemeral, a little more fleeting. It's not been as consistent, but that one's been up in parts of Jennings County, Indiana. You see where that spin is right there. That one's not quite as impressive, but we've seen some numbers come from it that have been certainly very concerning, so we'll keep an eye on that one. Two areas of concern, which means that if you are in areas, especially in the northern half of Jennings County, Indiana, you not only have the one storm moving through now, but you've got a second one waiting in the wings off in the distance west of Seymour, west of Spraytown, Indiana, that could be moving in your direction here. So we need to make sure that everybody knows that this is not over yet. Even though we saw sort of some of a down tick a few minutes ago, things have upticked again, and that happens. These cells cycle. They cycle off and on with rotation, and sometimes they can cycle with a funnel cloud or even a tornado. So at any second, a tornado can form, and you need to be in your safe place ready for that. Bald Knobs, Spraytown, make sure you're in your safe place right now. I'm going to keep track of this storm right here as Brian Good continues to monitor the storm that's a little closer to Country Squire Lakes there in Jennings County, Indiana, so that we can present to you some team coverage of this in our fold. And Brian, what are you seeing there along Indiana 7 there?
Yeah, this is what you're looking at again is the wind fields. We are able to detect where they're blowing here, and basically what you're looking at is the green is the wind that is blowing toward the radar, red blowing away. And of course, if you were to say put a pencil in your hand and you move your hand one direction, your hand in the other, you see what can happen there is the pencil begins to spin. It's exactly what's happening with this particular thunderstorm, and if it spins fast enough, it can certainly begin to produce a funnel cloud, and that is certainly what the report we had. I haven't heard of anything since that point, though, when it was in Reddington, but we'll need to see how this trends here in the next few moments as it tracks just north of North Vernon. So right along there, Highway 7 and also heading toward Brewersville and Highway 3 there, State Road 3, and then there's Highway 50. Right on the northern side of town. That is likely going to be around the fringe of where the strongest of circulation is showing up. So that's one area. And then, of course, now we're getting still that circulation there. It doesn't seem as intense, I should say, but it may be cycling, so I don't want to let the guard down here. And Ryan, real quick, we want to mention there's nothing in Louisville, but the wind now in Louisville has increased to 36 miles per hour. So just kind of letting you guys know the clouds may look a little weird out there now because we're getting some of the blow-off clouds in the area. We do not have anything in Louisville that's happening, so don't be too concerned about the wind here locally. Our focus is on Jackson and Jennings counties. Yeah,
those are called gradient winds, the winds outside of a thunderstorm, and sometimes those can do some light damage too.
That's increasing here.
Yeah, that's the most impressive storm, the most impressive rotation. I've got pulled up here on the right-hand side of your screen the rotation near Spraytown. Brian is tracking the one in northern Jennings County, so this is the Jackson County storm. The Jennings County storm likely a little bit more intense at this time, even though both storms could put down a tornado at any given time. So we need to treat these equally, even though one probably has a better look on radar when it comes to the wind velocity. Indiana 58 in northern Jackson County. Be in your safe place immediately. Brian's pulling up some of the shear values on the storm in northern Jennings County. I want to get to that. You'll see that on the left-hand side of your screen. Is that 92 miles an hour?
92 miles per hour.
Wow.
And again, this is the radar estimate of the wind just off the ground. When we talk about gate to gate, we're basically trying to determine the correlation of the winds blowing to and from the radar, and that is able to give us a general idea of the motion of the overall feature here. And when you get above 60, 70 miles per hour, you're dealing with a fairly formidable spin that's happening here. But just because we're 92, again, we have no confirmation of a touchdown. But this is an area that, again, I got a feeling we're going to get reports a bit delayed, and that's been the case most of the evening. We've had some delayed reports.
Yeah, these are rural communities that are being impacted by these storms. They're no less important, but it takes some time for folks after the storm is over to survey what damage has been done and file those reports with local emergency management and eventually the National Weather Service up in Indianapolis, which controls both Jackson and Jennings counties' tornado warnings. They're the reason we're on the air right now, both of these tornado warnings. We showed you the tornado warning and the attendant rotation up in Jennings County. That was northwest of Country Squire Lakes. Very impressive. Be in your tornado safe place in northern Jennings County right now. But if you're northern Jackson County, we continue to monitor this rotation as well. Not as powerful, but we want to make sure that we're not letting our guard down, because this can also put down a tornado at any point. The real danger point of this is going to be just northwest of Spraytown, where you see the highest red and green values really coming together right here. This is west of Indiana, 58. Again, not as intense, but we still need to treat this one with respect. And that means getting in your tornado safe place. That's either a basement, a storm shelter, or a first floor of your home, or a motorcycle helmet nearby. Put that on. Make sure you're wearing shoes just to make sure that any sort of debris that may get picked up isn't cutting you after the fact here. We want to make sure that everybody knows that this storm does mean business and that it is coming in your direction. If you live along Indiana 58, that's just north of Spraytown, this storm is moving right toward you. And the tornado warning for it goes until 9:30 this evening. I'm going to zoom out once again because I know we're going to have folks here in Louisville that are just tuning in, maybe saying, all right, what's going on? They've been on the air for a while. It's not Louisville, it's not E-Town, it's not areas closer to Campbellsville that we're concerned about. It's up toward Seymour, Indiana. It's up toward areas of northern Jackson and Jennings counties that have the most risk of seeing any sort of tornadic activity. And I want to go over to Brian Good here because you've got the rotation pulled up for the northern Jennings County storm. I want to make sure we bounce to that so that folks know what's going on there.
Yeah, exactly. And what we're doing, again, just kind of keep an eye and see how this is cycling through here. Again, no reports yet. I want to make sure that you guys are not trying to peek out your windows here into Jennings County. I know a lot of you weather enthusiasts, you want to see what's going on here. Don't do it. All right, just stay in your safe spot, stay away from windows, get in your lowest level of your home. If you're in Brewersville, an alert was just sent out to you guys now on the Way 3 News weather app. You need to certainly make sure you are already in your safe spot. You're pretty much out of time now. The rotating thunderstorm is moving overhead. We've had a history of a funnel cloud with this, but that was back in Reddington into Jackson County. I haven't seen anything yet come in since that time, but we need to still treat this as we do with every tornado warning, that the potential is there for some stronger winds. And I'm not noticing as much of a strong signature now on that rotation there, Ryan, but this has been cycling through off and on as it's been moving through portions there of Jennings County. Becoming a little more broad and a little more south too, as we figured it would be. This is going to affect much more real estate into wave country here than any other storm has. And this is the one that right now certainly has our attention.
And that's because of the shape of Jennings County. It sticks out more into central Indiana more than any of our counties. Areas near Spraytown, you need to be in your tornado warning safe place right now, because the hook point of this storm, of this embedded supercellular structure here, is right over you. And that's where the rotation in this storm is going to be that could potentially put down a tornado at any second. We talked about how things are cycling, how maybe it's not as strong, the rotation in a couple of these storms, as it was before. That doesn't mean you should leave your guard down just because we can see a tornado develop from these storms at any point. It sometimes takes just one scan of the radar. And this is happening about every 60 seconds right now in the mode that the radar is in to happen. So we want to, of course, make it very clear that we are not downplaying the severity of these storms. We're simply giving you the analysis of what the storms are doing at this time so that you can, of course, know if the storms are getting a little weaker, if they're getting a little stronger. But the overall message here is to make sure that you're in your tornado safe place, regardless of what point of the cycle that we're in. All right, so this rotation that's going to be just west of Bobtown, this is north of Acme, Indiana. That's going to be in northern Jackson County. This is starting to hug a little closer to that northern Jackson County border with Brown County, Indiana. So if you're north of Acme, if you're northeast of Freetown, you need to still be in your tornado safe place. If you are in Bobtown right now, this is an immediate warning to take shelter. Your life could be in danger from this storm if you are in the wrong place. I know it's so easy, and I'm guilty of this too, wanting to see these storms up close, maybe look out the window, try to take a picture. Don't do it. Not worth it. The sun's going down anyway. You're not going to see this stuff, and it may very well be wrapped in rain if there is a tornado, so that's an even more deadly situation because you won't be able to see it coming. It looked like a big black sheet coming at you. So do not try to look at these storms with your own eyes. Make sure that you're keeping your eyes, of course, on our coverage that's on your mobile device going down into your safe place, either a basement or a central interior hallway or bathroom away from windows and doors. The more walls you have between you and the outside, the better in a situation like this. That could produce is switch us over to some of the hail here, because I know we haven't really talked about hail much, and the reason for that, not a lot of hail to be talked about. So that's not a today thing. That's more of a tomorrow thing. We may get some more hail tomorrow out of these storms. Also, what we can do is track if there's any debris being lofted into the air by these storms. That would, of course, be lofted into the air by a tornado. We're not seeing that, so we're not seeing a confirmation on radar of a tornado. We're seeing the potential for a tornado to drop at any given second with either of these signatures. Of course, the one that we're talking about in parts of northern Jackson County here, starting to hug that border with Brown County a little bit more now, so areas near Bobtown, you still need to be on guard. And then we also continue to track that storm that's moving into parts of, or moving over parts, I should say, of Jennings County. This is the northern half of Jennings County. We'll zoom in on that, give you the latest on that situation here as Brian Good continues to look at some of the wind velocity data now moving into the North Vernon area. What you got there?
Yeah, speaking of North Vernon, I just heard from Jerry Ann on Facebook here, and she just mentioned that a lot of lightning and thunder, but very little in the way of wind. And that's not shocking considering most of this is in the northern side there. So again, we appreciate your reports. Just only tell us what's going on safely. We don't want you to put your life in danger here. The update on this tornado warning, by the way, it has sped up a bit more from 30 to now 50 miles per hour. So it's gaining a little bit of speed. You can see where we had really the main cluster of thunderstorms, and now the split has happened between the two cells. One is now tracking well north into Greensburg, Indiana. This one, by the way, behind the banner up here to the north is on the ground doing damage. And then the southern part of it is heading more along, I would say, parallel here to basically Highway 50. And it's moving right into Brewersville and to the northern side of North Vernon. So that is the one that's holding its track so far, heading due east. And that's going to cover a good chunk there of the Highway 50 north corridor, it looks like, for that particular circulation we have. And so far, Ryan, I'm scanning, I'm trying to make sure, and still nothing since Funnel Cloud in Remington, and I hope that's the only thing that we get out of this.
Yeah, that can be great news. It's just we're waiting to see if, of course, there's any delayed reports from these very rural areas that will be coming in. So if you have any sort of storm reports, you can send them to us on Twitter or Facebook, as long as you're doing it safely. I don't want you going outside to look. I want you to, of course, go outside when the storm has passed and tell us if anything has happened, or if you happen to be in your tornado safe place and you happen to hear something or just see something from a distance there, you can let us know then too. We want to make sure everybody's in their safe place. That is first and foremost in this situation, more so than anything. So what I'm going to do now is zoom in on this just a little bit. We're going to put this in play mode so you can get a sense of the motion here, that these storms are speeding up somewhat. They went from 30 miles per hour forward motion to 50 miles per hour. So that's telling us right now that we indeed do have the storms that are starting to speed up just a bit. That's kind of a good thing. That'll get them out of here quicker, and that will reduce the amount of time that folks are spending underneath heavy rain. We've talked about all evening long how flash flooding can be even more deadly than a tornado, and that's a potential for the overnight to have some flash flooding scenarios in these areas. We want to make sure that everybody knows that that's also a very deadly component to some of these storms that may be underplayed, because it's just not as frankly exciting as a tornado can be sometimes, and I mean that in a very negative way, by the way. To the north of North Vernon, you see there near Brewersville, we're still tracking that rotation up there, and we take you over to the west, and we're still tracking that rotation. This is near Bobtown, Indiana. This is the northern part of Jackson County, Indiana, right along the county line with Brown County, Indiana. So if you're in those areas, you need to be in your safe zone, your safe place, your tornado precautions right now. We're going to move the radar around just a little bit to get a better angle on some of these storms in Jennings County. They've been tornado of the bunch here, and I just don't see a whole lot of imminent concern in the northern part of Jennings County at the moment. It doesn't look as intense as it looks, but again, this could be on a downward cycle, comes back up, spins a little faster, and then you've got yourself in a situation where a tornado could be put on pretty quickly there. So Brian Good, looks like you're looking at is that Echo Tops there?
Yeah, and it's certainly gaining some height here as it's moving through. So we may start getting some hail reports here very soon. But also the gain in height is also tall-telling in the idea that a tremendous, and I mean a tremendous amount of rain is now falling here. It's a good thing it's picking up forward motion a bit, but we got more to the west, of course, to get through. But that's the latest we're getting here, is that certainly a torrential downpour and potential again for some hail potentially on Highway 50 as that storm continues to gain some height in that area. So let's check out and see if we get anything that's actually spinning once again in that particular zone. And you see that everything, even there, starting to come down a couple of notches. And a wider view of anything else we're showing, well, to be honest with you, we got a few more cells that are trying to have some wind energy still along that same line. We're going to have to babysit these, I got a feeling, as we hit the next few hours. But right now, the one that we had in Jennings is starting to taper down a bit on that side. But we may certainly see an increase and maybe some small hail. And again, that rainfall rate is really increased there in Jennings County.
Yeah, just because of how high those cloud tops get. The taller a thunderstorm is, the more potential it has to put down some of those damaging winds and especially high rainfall rates. That's why we look to see just how tall some of these storms are with that product that Ryan was showing you on the radar earlier. We continue to monitor the storm just north of North Vernon. This is between Brewersville and North miles per hour. Tornado again is moving east at 50 miles per hour. So in order for us to be proactive here, if you are between Zenith and Butlerville, Indiana, again, if you're north of US 50, you need to be in your tornado safe place immediately. There is some rotation that is passing toward you, albeit it's not overly strong, but we've seen that even in just one radar scan, we can go from not a whole lot to a whole lot in just a very short time. That was the tornado warning that we had issued earlier in Jackson County, how that spun up so quickly, and the National Weather Service was being very proactive, and so are we, in trying to get the warning out about that as fast as we can. We're actually going to go back to parts of Jackson County here, because I know we've been spending some time in Jennings County here over the past several minutes, because that storm continues to impress and give us some concern. And we'll zoom the wind velocity detector here, that product of the radar, up toward areas near Bobtowns. Is going to be right along the Jackson-Brown County line. That rotation continues to look somewhat weak. There's a brand new radar scan. You see how fast it updates. And that's going to push it near the Jonesville area, Brown County, here over the next several minutes or so. Again, we don't want people traveling on I-65 northbound into central Indiana, north of Seymour. Just not a good idea right now. These storms have some wind in them. There could be a rogue tornado that tries to touch down with a couple of these couplets here over the next several minutes. We're going to be on the air for quite some time here, just because this is not the only storm we have going on. We have additional storms out to the west of this. This is all what we call training in a line, and this training allows for multiple storms to go into the same areas over and over again. See that little hook shape? This is near Yellowstone, Indiana, south of Elkinsville, the very northwest part of Jackson County, Indiana, where we've got that hook shape. That's a little bit of rotation that may be trying to get set up there, and this may not mean that we are done with the tornado threat just yet, even though the two areas of rotation that we have currently in Jackson and Jennings County continue to move to the east pretty quickly. In fact, there's an update on some of that rotation in northwestern Jackson County. No tornado warning for this particular storm right now, but it wouldn't shock me if we saw another one issued, because we have seen this point as being could potentially put down a tornado with this situation. All right, rainfall rates are oh so important when it comes to flash flooding, and Brian Good, you're watching the latest on that.
Yeah, crazy rainfall rates are right. Again, it's a good thing this is moving, but this is the problem we're running into. We're monitoring the wind threat and, of course, the isolated tornado potential here. But rainfall rates, 3 to 6 inches. Is what the rate is per hour. Now, that's not going to be realized because the storm is moving, but it gives you an idea. This is blinding rainfall that is coming down on Highway 50 in northern areas of North Vernon, all the way into the northeast side of the county. And the problem is you guys are going to see this kind of train itself over and over again in the same spots. I mean, we're filming for you guys here tonight because this is going to be a long period all the way through midnight for Jackson, Jennings, and even Lawrence County for this a tremendous amount of rainfall that is moving through the area. But again, we'll just see how the storm transitions, Ryan, in the next few moments. You mentioned that one that was moving into Jonesville. Hopefully that will at least stay just outside of our area and stay relatively weak, but it may still clip Jennings. And the next one's rolling in. Does have some wind energy with it as well. Let's hope that we don't see this repeating pattern. I mean, they're certainly running out of time and fuel here because they're running over the same environment over and over again. So there's only so much that can be had for these thunderstorms. But so far, what's driving them by far is not only the moisture, but the wind energy that is passing through I-70 near Indianapolis. That ball of energy is really kicking up things here on the radar.
And you may be asking, too, why are these storms going over the exact same area in the line that they are? There was an old boundary between some warmer air and some cooler air that a lot of these tried to form on. We were talking about that Cincinnati, Indiana area near the I-69 corridor earlier. That's where some of the genesis of these storms is right now. And that's the point where we had that boundary. And that boundary continues to push off toward the north as these storms somewhat fan out as they merge together. Now notice this darker red box off to our north and west. This doesn't include our counties, but that's a flash flood warning. And we may add one of those to some of our counties, Jackson and Jennings, here over the next several minutes as these storms continue to train over the same spots. These rainfall rates, Brian was pointing out, several inches per hour in some cases. I mean, that is some astounding rainfall that you don't want to mess with, especially now that the sun has gone down. Current time is 9:17 in the evening. 9:06 was our sunset. We're about 10 minutes past that. This is now when this becomes really dangerous as a flash flooding situation, and also the tornado warning situation. The tornado situation is also very dangerous. That's why we're on the air in the first place. The flooding concern continues to be one of ours that we monitor very, very closely here, and will continue to do so over the next several minutes. We're going to give you another look at the rotation in this storm that's right along the Jackson and Brown County borders here. You see Jonesville in the distance getting ready to get impacted by this. Most of this rotation is 1 week, and 2 beginning to move more into Brown County. Brian was alluding to that earlier, so it's not so much a risk of tornadoes for Jackson County much anymore. It's more of the flash flooding potential that we're really keying in on. And Brian, you're looking at some of the rainfall that has been measured by radar here over the past few hours, and getting some impressive totals there.
Exactly, because again, we're taking a fraction of these rainfall rates of 3 to 6 inches per hour, and this is what the radar is saying has fallen in the past 6 hours. Keep in mind, you guys had quite a bit of rain this morning, so I'm not even factoring that in to the radar estimate here, just this evening. And you can certainly see where we've got the heavy rainfall rates coming through the area with rainfall estimates of about an inch, inch and a half, even close to 2 inches in parts there, northern Jennings County at the moment. And I'm seeing all your social media reports. I know you guys are asking a lot of questions, certainly about what will happen here into Louisville later on. And that's something that, of course, we're going to be evaluating as the night wears on. This is going to be a process that's not going to really end, to be honest with you guys, and tracking these heavy down, a few days ahead of us, tracking these heavy downpours moving through. But really for the Louisville area for tonight, we've got some time here before we really have to worry about anything crazy going on down into Louisville. I really think this is going to develop and work its way to the south and east, become more of an issue as we head toward sunrise. So by all means, make sure to turn on sunrise tomorrow morning and see where we stand on this. If you have plans to go to church services or hang out with Dad early in the day, just be mindful of that potential there. But Ryan, right now our main concern is still going to be to see how this rotation figures out. We've got just a bit longer here on these tornado warnings are still in effect. Yes,
that's right. So we may be here for at least several more minutes as we allow these tornado warnings to reach their end point here. I want to show you exactly where these storms are in relation to Louisville. Louisville, of course, well south of these. Northern Jackson and Jennings counties are the ones that we are most concerned about at this time. We'll zoom right into those and give you the latest update on that. We were talking about some of the flash flooding concern, and that could be greater than a tornado concern, especially when you get this much rainfall happening in such a short time frame. We'll put on the wind velocity here, give you a sense of exactly where these storms are spinning at, what areas are under the most concern for any sort of tornado activity. And we still have those 2 distinct areas of rotation, one that's along US 50 that's northeast of North Vernon, and another one that's going to be north of Seymour at this time. What we're going to do is zoom in on this just a little bit more to give you more clarity on where this is. So that's again north of Seymour. This is the northeastern part of Jackson County, Indiana, that we are most concerned about in Jackson County at this time. We'll take the velocity scope and put that a little closer to where the actual rotation is occurring. And yes, that is going to be crossing the I-65 corridor at this time. This is just south of Jonesville, just north of Rockford, Indiana, crossing I-65. This is why we've been telling you not to be driving on 65 going on. So we've got the one area of rotation. And of course, we have more thunderstorms and, of course, a flash flood warning just northwest of our counties that continues to pace through. And that's going to give us that flash flooding threat once the tornado threat subsides. It's not going to be a tornado threat all night. We are coming up here on about 9:20 in the evening. By 10 o'clock, the tornado watch will be expiring. I have a feeling they will be letting it expire about that time because things will have calmed down due to the distance and time that we have from sunset here as we get to lose some of the heating of the day. But again, if you're along I-65, that's going to be just north of Rockford, Indiana. This is north of Seymour. You need to be in your tornado safe place immediately because there is an immediate concern for a tornado that may try to touch down here over the next next several minutes or so. It could be any second with these storms that a tornado tries to touch down, given the environment that we have, the amount of wind shear that we have. The second tornado warning, of course, continues until 9:45 this evening, I should say, in the northern parts there of Jennings County, Indiana. You see the big board there on your left, those two tornado warnings, one in Jennings, another one for parts of Jackson and Jennings. One has about 9 minutes left, the other about 24 minutes left. We will see if any of these tornado warnings get extended or expanded to include other parts of our viewing area up there in Lawrence and Jackson counties in Indiana. You see Butlerville there in the foreground. They are no stranger to tornadoes. They've had one there within the last 18 months or so, a very minor one, but nonetheless, you folks are a little bit tornado fatigued in that area. We're going to see right now what the rotation is doing. It looks like, there we go. Having some trouble there. There we go. Okay, so we're going to move that radar on over toward areas near Butlerville, and that's where we're going to find our second area of concern, our second focus for rotation. That will be the one that we continue to track as it moves east out of our counties, but Butlerville still a populated area, still along US 50, and still a place that we need to monitor just because there is the concern that a tornado could try to touch down at any point with that. You notice some lightning in this trending, and it has been upticking there for the last few minutes. We had a point here about, I'd say, 45 minutes ago with no lightning on the radar. Now we've got more lightning strikes. That's indicative of storms that are continuing to cycle in strength, go up and down in strength. And we're not seeing a huge focus for rotation at this point. You see near Butlerville, there's a little point where we could have some of that rotation that may try to put down a tornado there. So we'll be continuing to track that there over the next several minutes. It is moving to the east, all at about 50 miles per hour. So this stuff is moving fast now, but it may be too little too late for the flash flooding threat, since that's going to continue over the next, looks like, several hours. And Brian, you've got the history of some of these storms and how they've rotated, and it's impressive.
Yeah, it is. And the fact it's been repeating itself. This really reminds me of June, I believe it was June 23rd, June 22nd, back in 2011, where the Louisville Metro saw something very similar to this, where we saw repeated rounds of spinning going on that was training itself. We ended up having a touchdown with that one back in 2011. So this is a setup that we've seen before, but it is certainly frustrating when you see it, because we've got to watch each and every one of these. You can see, if I would stop this, every little section here, this is every little area where the thunderstorm is rotating, and there's quite a few of them. They're not strong rotations. That's good, but they're still there, which tells us that the thunderstorms are still able to produce not only some gusty winds, but also a tremendous amount of rain. They're basically just feeding on each other at this point. And on this boundary that Ron, you were mentioning earlier, that has been in this area, that's basically been in the driver's seat of how this is playing out. So I really, you hit this before, but we can't stress enough, if you do have travel plans north for the next few hours here, just hold off on these plans, because I really think it's going to become an issue of ponding of water on the roadways. We're talking about parts of Highway 50 be a mess. And I-65 is going to be a mess. And I should mention that it gets even worse north of there when it comes to damage reports we're getting across central Indiana, because we've had several touchdowns in the area. Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned's with me as well. And Kevin, I know you've been on the phones working, talking to so many emergency managers. What have you found out?
Well, the idea is most of the damage is just outside of our viewing area, but we're still seeing the rotation showing up in the northern parts of the counties that are warned for. But I did just hang up with Jackson County and Jennings counties dispatch of Indiana. No reports of damage in either of those counties, but both reported funnel clouds. And the one over in Jennings County was on State Road 3, between State Roads 3 and 7 along Highway 50. And then the only issue they're working in Jackson County happens to be a lightning strike to a home there. But clear on the radar where these pockets of rotation exist. And for anyone that's wondering why we're on the air, it's simply because we've seen damage with homes, barns, power outages that have been reported literally a couple of miles north of where these warnings are in place right now.
I mean, so far, I mentioned this earlier, but we've been very fortunate. I mean, very, very lucky considering what is happening. Even right now, as we're talking, damage has taken place in central parts of Indiana there. So this is something we'll have to just trend carefully here the next few moments. Ryan, we're watching these areas of rotation, each little wiggle that's passing through. There's several of them, but we'll just see whether or not they can cycle back up to produce additional funnel clouds. Again, as long as they're funnel clouds and not tornadoes, we're okay with that idea. But it does look like they're going to at least, Weather Service is going to allow this particular tornado warning there across portions of Jackson and Jennings. We're going to allow it to at least settle down and expire. hopefully we do not see any type of reissuance at all out of this.
It's such a challenging setup when you have this many areas of rotation. No matter how weak they may be, they're still rotating, and at any given second, you could see a spin up, an intensification of any of these areas in the northern parts. Tone here in the northern parts of Jackson and Jennings counties. Again, this is going to be a flash flood threat for a lot of you folks, a tornado threat for a few of you folks up there. So the tornado threat more confined. Notice it's only just a few spots that we continue to be concerned about. There's one near Spraytown. There's another one northwest of Hayden that's getting ready to move into northern Jackson County at this time. And that's continues to be our utmost concern, is the flash flooding and, of course, the tornado potential. We're going to zoom the radar over to areas of Jennings County here to give you an update on the storm that is now exiting Jennings County, that's moving into parts of areas just east of our viewing area at this time. You see that little notch right there? This is just east of Butlerville. A little bit of rotation in there. That's going to be exiting here very shortly, getting out of our hair, and we'll watch those more minor circulations to the west of that. Again, training along the same line, west to east. It's like ants marching on a picnic table here, that we continue to watch all of these storms march to the east, put down some very heavy rain, and rotate just enough to keep that tornado warning potential in for us here across these parts of these counties. You see Butlerville there. You see Holton. That's not a lot of rotation there at this point. And you see the other area of rotation that continues to concern us. That's east of US 31 there, east of I-65, moving into Hayden. There's a brand new radar scan. Continues to look somewhat broad on that radar scan. That's good news. And again, it's very lucky. It's so lucky that we have not had any appreciable reports of damage in our counties from these storms. It's all been just north of the county lines that we serve. Unfortunate for those folks, but for folks who live in northern Jackson and Jennings, that has been our saving grace tonight, is the exact placement of all of this for this evening and where it has been. So that is going to be something that hopefully we can write down as being the takeaway from this event, is how lucky we were about it, and not so much the damage that we did see. It looks like the rotation has now moved out of Butlerville, so that storm not posing a threat to eastern parts of Jennings. That line update for Louisville. I know it's coming up on 9:30 here. We're on Wave 3 News with live streaming coverage on the Wave 3 News weather app, and of course our Amazon Fire and Roku apps as well. You can access us on those devices. And for Louisville, we don't have a lot of severe weather potential here tonight. It's very, very low. Most of this is going to be well to our north, up toward Seymour, up toward those areas that have the most potential to see the small tornado threat here over the next several minutes. This will be wrapping up, at least the tornado part of this, pretty shortly. The flash flooding potential will continue just because of all the heavy rain that we have continued to have. And this training of rainfall over the same areas time and again, especially past dark, is especially dangerous. We say it a lot, but it needs to be said. Turn around, don't drown. This is not a situation to be playing with. And Brian Good, it looks like you're looking at some of the history there of the rotations that we've been seeing on radar there, kind of training along the line. And that's been very impressive, and that's a rare sight to see it lined up like that.
It is, and it's certainly concerning in terms of flash flooding that we're going to see developing here. I'll tell you what, Jennings County, you guys just can't seem to catch a break here. This next cell that's moving in is starting to increase once again. In fact, let me get a better handle here on how the shear is looking in this actual cell, and it's gone up. You saw one of the reports here a second ago. There it is, about 41 miles per hour. That's not overly strong. That tells me it's rotating, but it was only about 15 to 20 a few moments ago. So it's certainly starting to tighten up a bit more. Not to the point where we're raising any red flags here. You need to get into your basement like right now, but certainly just keep in mind this is one you need to watch, because we've seen these kind of cycle through and just kind of uptick rather quick. In fact, earlier we had just one radar scan that went from hardly anything to a funnel cloud. So it's one of those setups we just need to watch carefully. But right now, if you live northern reports there of that funnel cloud that was sighted, we had the lightning strike that took place and parts of this area too, Jackson, Jennings County, and of course we've had reports there of some strong winds. I got a feeling that we're going to hear a lot more about the potential here for damage that it may have taken place as far as wind damage. These reports, you got to keep in mind, they take a bit of time to come through, because emergency managers, emergency personnel, they're trying to be safe too, and they're trying to take shelter. So they don't want to be in the middle of this. So it takes until the storms calm down, then they can get out and survey. And Kevin, that can take some time for them to get out there and check out what's going on. And when they repeat themselves like this, because they can't get out, to see what's happening. So it may be a while before we really know the true extent of some of the wind damage in this area.
Well, no question, and it can touch down in a moment.
Yeah.
We'll give Ryan's voice a break just a minute, doing a great job keeping everybody up to date with what's happening across the area. I'll just jump in and show a couple of things that we're concerned with, and it's anywhere along this line. So this is the northern part of our viewing area. Here's Seymour, there's Spraytown, Bald Knob, just north of Freetown. Anywhere north of Freetown on to the north, this is a zone that we've been watching with continued rotation. Now, I'm going to take the radar back over to where we have the tornado warning that obviously is in Jennings County, and that goes for another 15 minutes until 9:45. This is the storm where we have that rotation and additional rotation rolling over into Ripley County. That storm is now severe warned, so it's not a tornado warning, but a severe thunderstorm across much of Ripley County, Indiana. Now, let's take a look inside this storm with the velocity that we have, and we can look inside with our velocity scope, and you're going to see the rotation, and there's plenty of lightning and heavy rain with these. That's exactly going to be the problem. So we mentioned a couple of days ago when we raised the flag for an alert day to be issued for today, we said the main threats would be across southern Indiana, along and north of I-64. In those main severe weather threats would be the threat for gusty, damaging winds, possible tornadoes, as well as some very heavy rain. And that's what we're seeing. There you see some broad rotation, but by this point, with that radar coming out of Indianapolis, we're a little higher in the atmosphere here, but approaching north of Hayden over to North Vernon. That's an area where we do have rotation, and then adding some rotation there. But of greatest concern for us, let me zoom this back and then we'll move the whole thing over. It's going to be this zone here. We have had a funnel cloud spotted or sighted out of this storm. You can even see the rotation with the radar. So that's what we have going on across Jennings County in Indiana. This is that tornado warning until 9:45. It's going to be approaching North Vernon, just south of the Brewersville area. If the tornado actually touches down, obviously we have one in the sky because it's been spotted by police and emergency personnel. It's just going to take it a little more lowering to do some damage, and that's what we've seen throughout the evening hours. I'm going to take this box off so we take away the rotation, and I'm going to put this into motion. As we take a look at what's going on to our north, you'll see this is really only affecting a small part of our viewing area, and it's across Jackson and Jennings counties. But you folks are just as important to us as anybody else, and the reason that we're on the air nonstop and have been for hours now is because this is a real threat. If we thought that this was just a tornado warning that, was moving out of the area, it wasn't really going to cause any problems, we would jump back to programming. We understand Dateline is on. However, what we know is that we've seen damage. People are trapped. We've got homes that have been torn up just north of our viewing area. And it's along this same boundary, which is a warm front that's just off to our north. I'm going to zoom into this area, and then I'm going to put the velocity on, and you're going to see those little ripples that we're watching and that we've been talking about over the last couple of hours. First of all, you can see almost pick them out in the rotation. Now, as I go back and is where we have those red and green couplets together. And there you see, there's one. One spins up, there's another one. This is the one we're watching moving toward North Vernon. And you look along that path and you can see the embedded areas of rotation as it's a battle of the temperature zones. It's that warm front where we have warm southerly winds coming up, meeting some cooler air to the north. And that boundary is what these storms are rolling along. And yes, we do still have rotation moving across parts of northern Jennings County. And in a big way, this is concerning. Why? Because we've seen reports and have confirmed reports of funnel clouds being sighted out of this storm. So let's go back into it and give fair warning to those people that are going to be mainly impacted by this. And Brian, as I zoom into this, I see you're looking at the vertical structure of this storm. Yeah. Let's go over and just take a, kind of a scan back and forth to show that even though it's diminishing somewhat, it pulses back up. We're seeing this thing just sort of kind of cycle through, just like we have all afternoon and evening long.
Yeah, in the same spots. And Highway 50 is a good viewing point, it seems like, for the dividing line, mainly north of the highway. What we're looking at is the atmosphere tilted, looking at the wind energy here to get your bearings straight. Here is North Vernon right here. And again, I've got everything tilted. What I'm trying to find is whether or not we get any type of bright red and bright green that kind of come close together to each other. And so far, there's a gap, and we don't have the the bright red. All right, so that's what I'm looking for to indicate the intensity or the strength, really, of anything that's rotating here within this thunderstorm. Certainly got a lot of strong winds blowing toward the radar beam there in Indianapolis, but not so much blowing away. So that's something we've got to watch. This is one of our tools we've got that we're able to use to kind of track as we head the next few moments and see how this plays out for us. But so far, everything seems to be in the terms, Kevin, that we've been talking about here. It's just mainly potential. Not only will we hear more about some wind damage potential out of some of these, but this flash flooding threat, I'm really surprised that we don't have any type of flood advisory or flash flood warning out yet for parts of Jennings and Jackson County, but I got a feeling it's coming soon.
Yeah, I would not doubt that at all, because the training of these storms have just been going over the same area with very heavy rain, and that's what we're looking at here. Country Squire Lakes, there's Indiana 7, there's Indiana 3. The funnel cloud spotted just between the two. This is US 50. It's just north of there. So
okay, well,
that's the area.
Flash flood warning.
I see the flash flood warning just coming out for Jackson and Jennings County. That'll go until 2 a.m. So we do have now the flash flood warning coming out for that. As far as the continuation, as this storm sort of broadens out and weakens its rotation just a bit, the big question becomes, will the tornado warning continue across parts of Jennings County? Because it's set to expire in less than 10 minutes. And if that's the case, and let's just zoom out, I'm going to go back to our home view here. Again, getting our bearings together. We're down here in Louisville where there's really not much happening. Let me put the radar back on, and you'll see that pretty much it's all the extreme northern part of our northernmost counties, Jackson and Jennings. That is where we still have the tornado warning, though, and that's something that we've been watching for the last couple of hours. The tornado warning continues until 9:45, and as we zoom back into that area to our north, severe thunderstorm warnings just past that in parts of Ripley County. You'll see North Vernon is really an area of concern. Let me just pull that camera back up, and I'll show you the radar view and the velocity view closer to North Vernon and Brewersville. So there's Country Squire, there's North Vernon. That's a pretty good centered graphic. There's US 50 that we've been talking about, the funnel cloud between the two, now pretty much over North Vernon. We go back to our tools, we'll put on the velocity and just show that we still have that couplet showing up. So it looks like, you know, the rotate indication that we would have a better chance of seeing a funnel cloud or the possibility of the tornado itself. However, with reports of the funnel cloud being spotted by police, this is still an imminent situation, and if you are listening to us from North Vernon, Country Squire Lakes, Brewersville, you have to be in your tornado safe place right now. Butlerville, be on standby. This whole system is moving in your direction and will be moving eastbound. As it does, it's still rotating, and we may very well see a continuation of this warning. We'll have to wait for the National Weather Service on that. Meanwhile, the rain rates continue to pick up across that area. Brian and Ryan are looking at some of those totals as we speak across parts of northern Jackson and Jennings County. How much rain have they seen?
Yeah, this is just, again, radar estimates. We'll hopefully get some more decent numbers here soon. But again, 1.5 to 2 inches, or close to 2 inches in spots. It's been a common theme. And Kevin, moments ago we were looking at this, and rainfall rates in one part of Jennings County was 6 inches per hour. Now, thankfully, not all that can be realized because they are moving, but when they start training, you're going to get a fraction of that. Ryan Hoke is staying here with me as well. You've been on the phones talking to emergency managers and storm reports. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I was just off the phone with the sheriff's departments in both Jackson and Jennings counties. They have nothing to report right now, but just outside of our counties, just to show you some of the power of these storms, we have had a report, of course, of a damaged barn and a damaged home. That's up there in Decatur County, Indiana. And near the campus of the Indiana University in Bloomington, we have water running through the streets and cars stranded up there. This is all because of the flash flood threat that's now unfolding, and it wouldn't shock me to start seeing reports of that in the very northern fringes of some of our counties unfolding over the next several hours.
We've talked a lot about I-65. Not a good idea to be heading in that direction here this evening. Let these calm down, but unfortunately, we're going to likely see things redevelop overnight and work their way closer to the Ohio night. But we are setting the stage here for a very active night in Illinois and Indiana. That'll all be shifting south, and it's going to be not only a long night, Kevin, I think a long few days of heavy rain in the area.
Yeah, I want to go through what we expect through the rest of tonight. The warning for Jennings County is going to be allowed to expire. So this is going to expire. We'll transition to the severe thunderstorm warning in Ripley County. Obviously, we're here and we're going to be watching it closely behind the scenes. And if we need to jump back on TV, we will. Let me show you, first of all, on the radar, and then Brian's going to walk us through what to expect through the balance of tonight. Let me go back and just zoom into that one area to to our north, just to point out that that rotation continues to broaden, and we can see that on the radar right there. So it's over North Vernon. That warning is going to expire. And as far as the radar is concerned, we still have a lot of heavy rain and more to come moving across that area. So of the immediate concern, we're still watching the rotation, northern Jennings County. We still have flood potential as these areas of heavy rain move west to east across the extreme northern part of our viewing area. Flash flooding is not only a possibility, it's ongoing and it's deadly. So you've got to stay clear of those roads that may be flooded out. But we'll also be watching that rotation as it moves past. For folks that may be here in the city and across our viewing area, Brian, they're curious, what does the rest of the night hold for us? And are we at any risk of severe weather?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It doesn't look like we're having any problems when it comes to severe wind or hail overnight, but the flash flooding threat is going to be something I think we're going to hear a lot more of, and certainly flood advisories. So you can see on the big board, we still have the flash flood warning. That'll be in effect till 2 o'clock in the morning, guys, for Jackson and Jennings County. And again, those tornado warnings now being able to expire. Let me show you Futurecast. And again, this is just one model's idea. As we get into the overnight, we should see at least a brief break, and it will be brief. It looks in Jennings counties through about 4 to 5 in the morning. But look what happens. They blow up again in Illinois, move right over the same spots into the Wabash. Now we're running into flash flooding potential, certainly across that area, moving into our counties. And here we go. By the time we hit closer to sunrise, the radar lights up on both sides of the river. And again, this is mainly going to be heavy rain producers. Very intense lightning. I got a feeling that a lot of you are going to get woke up a lot earlier than you want to on Sunday morning. And keep this in mind if you're going to church or hanging out with dad early in the day. Heavy downpours will just basically ping pong off each other throughout the entire day, all the way into the afternoon. And Kevin, it does look like we're going to have more fuel tomorrow. So the rainfall rates should be higher than they have been so far today. Just give you an idea of what's coming. And a lot more intense lightning and some damaging winds in some cases, but the tornado threat is going to be lower tomorrow. So that's kind of, I guess, a trade-off that we have coming our way. But it is going to be certainly a very active setup coming up. Yeah,
and you know, the flooding, as you pointed out, really is the biggest concern over the next 24 hours for all of us as we see these heavy downpours develop. And that's just going to be the case. Tonight, it's across parts of Jennings, Jackson, Ripley counties and areas to the north. As the night progresses, it'll move a little further to the south. And as Brian mentioned, arriving across both sides of the river by early tomorrow. And then just hit and miss downpours that can produce tremendous rainfall rates throughout the day tomorrow. Once again, the tornado warning that we have for Jennings County includes North Vernon and Butlerville, will be allowed to expire momentarily. In fact, it's expiring as we speak. One more check with Ryan Hoke before we get you back to programming. And Ryan, I know you've been looking at some of the information coming in from all weather services that provide information to us.
Yeah, not only that, but social media. We appreciate all of your social media reports this evening. Lots of photos of scary clouds, but we haven't seen anything concrete when it comes to a tornado touchdown in our counties. Don't think that's happened tonight. And we've been very lucky, but we won't know that right now because of the flooding, too. So that may be some very delayed information we receive overnight.
Yeah, the sheriff's departments, the emergency managers, they don't want to be in this mess any more than you guys want to be in it. So they got to take care of their crews and safety. And right now, they have their crews out. But to get to areas of the reports they're getting into their dispatch, it's going to take a bit of time. So it may be a bit delayed. But we've said this many times, we have so far been very, very lucky and very fortunate. Let's hope that we don't run into an issue, though, with the flash flooding, which certainly is our biggest killer that we got, certainly at night, Kevin.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. The warnings for tornadoes have finally expired. We appreciate your patience. And for those folks viewing us from parts of Jennings, Jackson, over into Lawrence and Ripley counties, we've been here to keep you up to date. We're going to get you back to Dateline, and we will be here throughout the night to bring you updated weather information. We hope you'll see us tonight at 11 o'clock for the updated Father's Day forecast. For Ryan Hoke, Brian Good, I'm Kevin Harnett. Thanks for watching Wave 3 News.